Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Monday. Let's see, Monday, December 30th, 2024, and today's topic will be, well, basically I'm going to be coloring this, finishing it up, and I guess I'll call it experimenting with color. For now. And welcome back if you're returning, welcome if you're new. I sketch and post every day, and I set timers to stay focused and build a sketching habit. So I'm going to set a 10-minute timer, and this is basically final detail stage, as I call it, which is the final. There's like 4 steps. So there's the sketch. So I've worked on this. This will be like the 3rd day, I believe. Basically, it started off as just sketching hands, like different gestures and poses from imagination, with like 80% from imagination, and then with some reference, which is kind of what this is about, kind of the final detail. But the first stage is the sketch, which is kind of like just the sketch right here. And the detail would be kind of like right here, sort of detailed, or the shading actually, yeah, where you had like the light and the shadow, like if you want. Otherwise you would just do like a cleaner version with the line work being like the light and shadow. And then the detail stage is kind of like this, and then final detail would be like if I wanted to go back and do anything else, but like sometimes you don't need to. So that's why, so that would be like the 4th step. And so that's where I'm at here, where it's basically detailed. And so it's a blend of, I'm still detailing it, which is what I'm going to do here. And I'll kind of talk about, like, because if you've been following along, or if you want to see the process, you can look at some of the other videos that I'll link to. But like, yeah, so it's pretty different from what I can remember. Yeah, a big part of it is just experimenting with color. So what happened was, I kind of like, basically I needed to go in, and you could call it fixing it if you want to call it that, and I just call it experimenting because I don't really think it's messed up. So I went in with, I'll go over like the tools that I used. So this is just the usual like medium point felt tip pen that I use, like a Papermate here. And then yesterday I used for the underdrawing, I used this like really tiny pen that it's like this color to do like the underdrawing. And there's so many different approaches. Like I kind of have like a basic approach. One, I'll either kind of crosshatch like in a sketchy manner, or I'll just do it in a more like not sketchy kind of way, like more careful kind of way. So I already know like I could do that, like kind of the black and white look. And then I've just kind of been experimenting with color, like I've been, like today's topic says. So from yesterday's sketch, I mean, it looked good just because, I mean, I pretty much knew like I could sketch it. But part of the experiment was the color. Part of it was like the process. I'm kind of playing around with that. Part of it is like the character design. So that's what it turned into. It went from sketching hands to like designing a character and world building. So yeah, I started with this, and then I kind of just used different color, like of the, can't really see that one, just these different color of the same like felt tip pen. So basically markers, except that like with markers, so I also have markers, but I didn't want to use this. It doesn't look bad, but like it does look different. So it's already mixed media. So yeah, I pretty much did that. And then I kind of lost like the forms of this hand, but then I have like these like paint markers, and so I went over it. I actually don't mind that. That's the thing. So that's kind of why it's an experiment. in my mind, if I didn't, so here's an example of, so I drew this, I didn't have this in yesterday's video, so I drew this other hand. So part of the challenge was also just creating like this pose, because yeah, that's what yesterday's video was about, like just posing the hands, like incorporating it into an illustration. And so part of the challenge obviously is I couldn't really draw like the whole figure. So yeah, like that's the challenge, is just placing the hands correctly. Now obviously if it's on the computer you could just kind of move it around, but so yeah, that was like part of what was going on. This is like just with the pen, and I guess if I could just make it look like that, like I just would, like on this one. But that's kind of what I mean about experimenting, where it's not bad. I mean, I don't mind painting over it. If I didn't have to, I probably wouldn't, but like sometimes it looks nice, so I don't know. Like I sort of know intuitively, like sometimes that's like the best direction to take it, is to, so sometimes when it's like a happy accident. So anyway, with this video, I wanted to just kind of work on this and do like the final details, because part of what that stage is about is just giving it some time, and it can be tough to kind of, as you're working on it, to like step away. And that's kind of what happened, because I was wanting to finish it and then kind of overworked, like I kind of lost like the shapes and forms and stuff. And so after stepping away and then coming back, so this took about a couple of hours to get this far, and then I just kind of did this. So I just went in with like a paint marker and started to just add some highlights, and I didn't want it to stand out like that much. I mean, I want it to blend in. I wanted it to be subtle, like I wanted his face to be like the focal point. But yeah, I mean, it's not a bad look. As far as like the experimentation, part of it is like the color, and like the look of it, and also the character design. So what I'll do is just kind of do this. So the final detail, a lot of times you don't force it, at least in my opinion. Like the idea is not to force it, because it's basically done. But like, for example, I want to blend the hand a little bit more, like render it, but like without losing the shape. So I know that a lot of it will actually be like shaded, kind of like the way I did the face, which came out well. I had to like adjust the eyes, not adjust it, but like kind of paint in, but like that doesn't look bad. So part of it, like that is like the technique. Like, there's nothing wrong with, I mean, it's mixed media, so there's nothing wrong with going in with paint. But like I said in yesterday's video, if you have to, you can always paint over stuff. But the main thing is the character, I think, like the character design. So yeah, like another thing is I had to shift like the shoulder, because otherwise it doesn't look like he's leaning on this hand. So that was like another thing. And then part of it is like just the color. Like, how do you know which color to use? And so that's part of the experimentation, because that could have, like, that can kind of get look weird, the color scheme. But part of it is experimenting, not being afraid to experiment, and leaving what you can without overworking it. As far as blending, I mean, you could try different things. I mean, this is part of the look right here. So yesterday I had mentioned how, like, the hand, since I have kind of been talking about drawing the hand, how like there's different forms. So I know I want this to be sort of more shaded, and so I don't really want to use like the black. I mean, I did use it on the rest of it, but so yeah, part of the experimentation has to do with this, like the paint, like the mixed medium I'm using. It's just kind of like a look that I like, that I've been experimenting with. So this can help blend things, since I can't really blend with the paint. It also will fade a little bit, like the color, but it can kind of give you like a blending effect. So yeah, it's just kind of experimenting, but sometimes you can get a good picture and like a good character design, because part of it is that also for me, like a big part of it is I'm designing characters for my story. They kind of have a life of their own, and so you have to be sort of open-minded about like where they're going to come from. Otherwise, the first ideas will be kind of like derivative and generic. So I've said before that, so it's a fantasy story leaning towards like more dark fantasy, but basically a fantasy story. Obviously it's going to have like tropes and stuff, but it can still be good. I mean, I still like some. I mean, it could also be really bad, but yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll see movies, for example, and because as far as like reading, I tend to stick with like kind of the classics, but then I can't read too much of the kind of the same thing that I'm working on, because it's going to be too like influenced too much. Like it'll be distracting. So I tend to just kind of stick with like the original sort of inspirations, or just don't really read that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't really read that much these days. Well, what I'm currently reading is the Elric Saga, because I bought that, the hardcover of that. So if I read, it'll be like that for a little, for example. So yeah, this is just final detail stuff. It's stuff like this where you just accentuate really like the fine detail without messing up doing your best not to mess up the drawing and the character. So character design, so part of this is character design, not just like drawing hands and stuff, but sometimes with character design you kind of have to just show like a picture's worth 1,000 words kind of thing. Like in some ways it's pretty easy to design a character, but then in some ways it's difficult. It's kind of like trying to describe like why a song is good. There's kind of basic stuff about it, but then it's a mixture. Like it's a mixture of things that makes a song good. There's not like one formula. So yeah, I might just keep this at like a 20-minute video, because really this picture is done. As far as like blending, I mean, I can only do so much. Like, there's not a whole lot. I could try to blend in this right here to kind of make it fit the rest of the picture. Also to get some of like that reflected light. So there's only like kind of a limited palette with these markers, but I mean, it's alright. So you can kind of use this for some of the lighting. Like put a little bit in here. Yeah, don't really want to mess up the face. Like this was just kind of an idea just to fit, but that's kind of what I mean. Like sometimes you're just sketching, you're just wanting to draw something in the sketchbook, and then it ends up adding to the character. Since I've already started using these paint markers, they're kind of bold. I actually probably wouldn't, like in the dark areas, I would just leave it, because it does stand out. It makes it like pop out more. As far as like blending like this area, I've got yeah, I would just use like a color pen, so you can get some blending that way. Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it right here, actually. But I've always been kind of fond of like the mixed media look. I kind of got that from Bill Sienkiewicz. Like he like back in the day, like he did New Mutants like in the 90s, and like his artwork kind of got me into just using mixed media. Like it looks a little bit hodgepodge, but like I don't know, it sometimes can be pretty interesting. But there's a lot of fixing mistakes, but then also happy accidents. But yeah, just kind of drawing stuff the same way over and over is just not my thing, and that's why I couldn't do like animation, for example. And even like mainstream comics, because it's just boring to me. Wrap this up, because I feel like 20 minutes is kind of long, but not really. Maybe not for me, but just in general. And plus with final detail stuff, sometimes it's hard to tell like what you have to, like what there is to work on. Like I could probably add more highlight, or maybe I made that a little too dark or something. Plus it would be good to look up some reference of hands. I'd bring up some reference real quick. Yeah, hands are actually pretty tricky. I kind of wanted to show this. Like sometimes like this is fine to me, like if I'm just using color pen, like I would just do this. Yeah, I think I kind of killed the form a little bit there. So just go back in. But yeah, I mean, it can be tricky to paint hands because there's so many forms, and if you want it to look kind of realistic, I feel like probably wants to be kind of like that. Now, that's kind of what studies are for, and also like even color studies. So, but like that's what this is. So I'm not too worried about it, because I still consider this a sketch. So yeah, that's really what final detail is. It's just doing this without messing up what's good about it. And yeah, although in a way I'm fixing mistakes, it's not a bad look. It's also interesting. What I would probably do is maybe go in with a little bit of white paint, but wait for that to dry and just put like tiny, I mean, it's not even bad right now, I don't think. But yeah, like it's kind of hard to tell until you leave it alone, or like maybe incorporate a little bit onto like the face to make it blend in. That's another way to blend in the look. But yeah, I would probably leave it like once you get to a part where you're thinking, okay, it's not bad, like it just needs a few finishing touches, I would leave it. And then sometimes it's funny because like I have drawings like this, like when I go back in the so I think maybe tomorrow what I'll do is kind of flip through, sort of, because I mean I pretty much have done a video for every page in the sketchbook, so maybe I'll just kind of go through it and talk about it, just to, because it's the last day of the year tomorrow. But yeah, I was gonna say that yeah, sometimes after a week or two or longer, you go back and it's a lot better than you thought it was. And like you wouldn't, even if at the time I thought I would do something to it, like in hindsight, like now when I see it, I just think, yeah, it's fine. Like move on to the next thing. So it's kind of like that with this. Like it's very different. It's almost like you're a different person looking at it. Like you can see it more objectively. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap up this video. I want to thank you for joining me for today's sketching routine. Hopefully you come back. If you like these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it. And until next time, keep on sketching.